When we work with some of our larger and mid-sized organizations, a lot of them think that the big system integrators, the really big, well-known system integrators, are going to be a recipe for success and lower risk. I'm going to talk today about why that's not true and what some of the alternatives to the big system integrators are. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And I started my career as a Big Five consultant. I worked at one of the big, well-known system integrators back in the 90s. We did mostly big SAP implementations. We did the occasional Oracle implementation. And I got to learn a lot while I was in that role and in that job, and it was a great place to start my career. But I also got to see the dark side of what the Big Five and what those big system integrators do. And certainly as an expert witness now, fast forwarding 20 years, someone that's been an expert witness for 20 years, testifying in lawsuits that involve some of the big system integrators, I have a front row seat to what actually happens in some of these organizations and how it affects their clients. So I want to talk today about what it is that you should be aware of and how you can better manage these implementers if you do choose to use a big system integrator. And if you want to look at options, we'll talk about some of the alternatives to some of the big system integrators. Now, a lot of what we're going to talk about here today we outline in a white paper and report that we just published recently. That's the guide to selecting and managing your system integrator. So I encourage you to download that in the links below. So one of the biggest problems with a big system integrator model is that there's an assumption that's driven by the system integrators, and a lot of times organizations believe this when they hear it, that the system integrator is going to be the one-stop shop and the answer to everything you need in your digital transformation. And this simply isn't true. No organization or system integrator can be everything to everyone, and no skill set or no team of people is going to have everything it takes to manage all the diverse needs of a digital transformation. So if we look at things like program management, we look at the functional and technical configuration of the software, we look at integration and solution architecture, we look at organizational change management, process improvement. Those are all very diverse skill sets and very diverse needs that an organization has. So we want to make sure that we play to the strengths of whatever system integrator we end up hiring. And most of the time we find that probably 90–95% of the time with the big system integrators and the smaller ones too, their strength lies in the functional and technical aspects of the software that's being deployed. So anything to do with the designing and building of the software, that's their sweet spot. When you start talking about things like organizational change and data migration and integration to third-party systems, that generally falls outside the purview of what a system integrator is good at. The second big thing to be aware of is the level of bias that exists with system integrators. I remember when I was at one of the big system integrators and we were deploying SAP, it was always SAP first. It was an SAP first mentality of how can we make SAP work in this situation, even if SAP clearly didn't work. I remember one of the first projects I had at the system integrator that I started at was working on the returns process for a very complex manufacturer. There's serialization and a product hierarchy with a lot of different components, and they would have warranties at the serialization number at the component level that was serialized. So that was something that we were trying to find a way to force SAP to handle at the time, and this is 20 years ago with SAP R3, and it was a lot less advanced than SAP has become over the years. But at the time, that was a big problem and a disconnect between what the client needs were and the client's business model and how the software can handle it. And the reason I share this story is because that's indicative of what system integrators will typically do is they will lead with their bias, which is whatever product that they implement, that's what they're going to focus on first, and that's why you've hired them. So you need to either internally and or with the help of agnostic third-party consultants look at, is that the right solution for us in this particular situation, and where does and doesn't the software fit our needs, and where it doesn't fit, what can we do about it to augment what the core competencies of that technology might be. Another problem with big system integrators is that they are typically going to be the high-cost option. Maybe not on paper where you look at the hourly rates. they aren't always the highest cost option, although they oftentimes are. But even if you assume that they have a comparable hourly rate to a tier 2 system integrator or a smaller system integrator, in the grand scheme of things, when all is said and done, you're going to spend more on a big system integrator than you would on a mid-sized one. And part of that is because they're simply so big and the teams they build out are so big that they're billing more hours, and it typically will take them longer to do some of the work that needs to be done than a smaller, more nimble system integrator. So it's important when you get your proposals from your system integrators, make sure you really validate that and poke holes in the assumptions in how the system integrator has crafted their solution, because oftentimes we see that the proposals don't reflect what the real cost and what some of those hidden costs of the system integrator are going to be. And that's where a technology agnostic advisor like Third Stage can help you augment and understand how the system integrator's costs might really turn out compared to what they might be proposing to you. Another key thing to keep in mind, and this is really important, and it's a hidden risk that a lot of companies don't see or think about leading into a relationship with a big system integrator, and that is the amount of leverage that a big system integrator has in your transformation and on your business in general. If you think about it, if you're a decent sized organization and you have several dozen or maybe 100 plus consultants coming to handle this transformation for you, you suddenly are outnumbered, and there's a certain amount of leverage and perceived expertise that the system integrator has that people are afraid to challenge. And even if it's not right for their business or there's decisions being made by the system integrator that don't make sense for their business, oftentimes the fact that the leverage is so off kilter because they're so big and because they have so many people on the project, the strength in numbers can oftentimes overwhelm organizations. And we see it all the time. I've blogged and written articles about getting Accenture or Deloitte. I'm using it as almost a verb where these big system integrators, intentional or not, oftentimes overwhelm and will steamroll organizations into making decisions that just don't make a lot of sense. So just be aware that you have to work extra hard to manage that relationship and make sure that you control the system integrator and they're not controlling you. Another lesson I found as an expert witness in recent years is that a lot of times CIOs and CFOs think that by choosing an Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, KPMG, or whoever the big system integrator is, they think that there's less risk. They think that no one ever got fired for choosing system integrator A, B, or C. And that's simply not true. When you look at some of these big failures and the involvement that big system integrators have in these big failures, I would say the failure rate is as high or higher than some of the smaller system integrators. Now, I don't have any quantitative data to back that, just as a caveat, but just based on qualitative experience, I don't see any advantage to working with the big system integrator in terms of less risk or higher success rates. We've seen some mid-tier and smaller system integrators actually provide better value, better guidance, better expertise than some of the larger system integrators have. So what does this mean for our implementation? Does it mean we just avoid the big system integrators? Not necessarily. You certainly want to evaluate your options and look at what big system integrator options you have and agnostically choose among the system integrator options you have. So for some organizations, it does make complete sense to go with a big system integrator, but you want to make sure that you've got the right risk mitigation tools in place to help manage those system integrators, to identify the risk, to make sure that the fox isn't guarding the hen house, so to speak. And that's a way a company like Third Stage Consulting can help in a technology agnostic way. Now, if you find that the big system integrator model isn't for you, it's not a good cultural fit, or you see too much risk or cost associated with that, there's plenty of other options out there. There's some very good system integrators. Even when you look in the big ERP space like SAP and Oracle, there's a lot of really good second and third tier system integrators that maybe aren't as well known, but you look at their track record and the quality of the resources and their cost benefit, and it certainly rivals and exceeds the big system integrators in many cases. So really make sure that you look at your full menu of options out there, because there is absolutely no need that you only need to consider the big system integrators. So I hope you found this information useful. I encourage you to read more by downloading our guide to managing and selecting a ERP system integrator. You can download that via the link below. I also encourage you to subscribe to my channel for more thought leadership like this, and I hope you have a great day in the meantime.